welcome everybody to Topless Topics, the channel that seeks to destigmatize female toplessness through repeat exposure. I am your host Cleo, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about why I stopped calling myself a nudist, aka naturist. However, I must warn you that if you are watching this version right now, it means you're about to embark on the super censored, patriarchy-approved version of this video, where every inch of my scandalous, inherently sexual female body is covered demurely, as it should be. If you'd like to watch the uncensored, patriarchy-unapproved version of this video, then please go to my website, which I can't even link to here or YouTube will ban it as linking to porn, as they have in the past. So, I guess just follow me on social media and ask me directly and I'll give you the link. I mean, YouTube's already banned me just for linking to my own Twitter account as linking to porn, so yeah, YouTube. Anyway, hopefully you go ahead and do that so you can watch, again, the uncensored, patriarchy-unapproved version of this video. But if you don't want to, well, buckle in, I guess, and join me on this journey of self-exploration and why I don't like to call myself a nudist anymore. Enjoy! Hello and welcome everybody to Topless Topics, the channel that seeks to destigmatize female toplessness through repeat exposure. I am your host Cleo, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about why I stopped calling myself a nudist, or naturist, whichever word you're more comfortable with. So a little bit about myself in case you're new here. I am 36 years old. I was born and raised in Southern California, although for the last 6 years I've lived here in Portland. And since birth, I was raised as a nudist. If you've never heard of nudism, or you have a skewed impression of what it actually is, essentially nudism is feeling comfortable without clothes in exactly the same situations that you would be with clothes on, just, again, without clothes. Watching TV, going for a walk, hanging out with your friends, cooking a meal, although I do recommend wearing an apron if you're cooking with grease. Literally just exactly the same as with clothes. There's no sudden sexualization of these activities just because you're naked. It's not like someone takes their shirt off and all of a sudden everyone else in the room is overcome with uncontrollable lust. Yeah, literally just doing stuff naked. That's it. Nudism is not to be confused with exhibitionism, which is going to be its own video one of these days, but in a nutshell, exhibitionists want to be looked at and admired. Nudists don't want to be looked at and admired. They just want to exist nude. Please don't, comment on our bodies. Just keep it to yourself. That's the big difference, something that the majority of my commenters don't seem to understand. So that's nudism. Given that I was raised a nudist, it never was like, I didn't have this, sort of born-again Christian mode where I just suddenly was like, oh my gosh, I can live my life without clothing. I literally just never really thought about it. Obviously, at some point, there must have been conversations with my parents about, we're not allowed to go naked out on the street. At home is fine, but if people see you, especially when you're a kid, they will freak the out. Situations that I'm actually going with now with my own sons. I have a 4 and 6-year-old and they love to be naked like all the time, and I have to convince them to put clothes on whenever we're leaving the house or whenever we're having people over. I don't know how much they actually understand. Basically, the way I put it to them is just that we don't care about nudity, but a lot of other people do, and we just, it's not worth having people freak out and just, well, I don't really bring it up to them, but, calling CPS and saying that we're abusing them and all that. But the fact that I was born and raised a nudist does seem to kind of separate me from a lot of the people who follow me who do identify as nudist. A lot of them are older, cis white men. A lot of them were raised in, if not necessarily conservative, then still modest households. A lot of them don't have the opportunity to actually be naked around other people or in nudist spaces because they're in areas that don't really have resorts or because they can't afford to visit them. Just, or the risk of being outed to family and friends that are going to freak out because they think, again, that nudism is this wild sexual thing, and it's not. So right there is one of the big differences. Another, as I mentioned, is that they tend to be cis men. I am a cis woman. I have trans friends. I have non-binary friends. I have cis male friends. I have cis female friends, the full spectrum. And it's impossible not to recognize certain perspectives that humans have when going out into the world. Even if we're trying to make an effort to be more aware of other people's perspectives, there's just always going to be a bias where we're going to see the world through what we've experienced. You have to actively work on it. You have to actually force yourself to feel sympathy, empathy. You know, I do think you have to like have a bit of a basis for that, but we actually have to fight against our nature, our you know, instinctual nature, to realize that, hey, just because I haven't experienced that thing doesn't mean that no one else has, doesn't mean that it's not valid, etc. The way that this relates to nudism is that as cis men who were raised cis men, they haven't been sexualized since infancy the way that I have as a female-bodied person. I'm not gonna get derailed on whether or not men are sexualized. Yes, obviously there is some level of sexualization, but it's just straight up not the same as a female-bodied person. It's just not the same. And to men, most men, to men, having their body complimented or whatever, or, you know, hey, I really like your, I don't know, your chest, whatever. To a lot of men, it's like, oh, okay, thanks, because it doesn't happen that often. When you're a woman, there's this connotation of your focus in the world is to be pleasing to me, the man. Your worth is tied up in how fuckable you are, as I like to put it a little crassly, but I think it makes the point. As such, nudist men out there in the wild are not getting that many comments that I am. They're not getting comments about their bodies, especially, you know, if they just look like normal people, not supermodels. No, very few people, especially in nudist resorts, are going to go up to them and be like, I like your pecs, or I like your or all this other shit. So for a lot of men, nudist spaces are a lot more comfortable. This is especially true for places that aren't necessarily nudist, but simply clothing optional. For instance, clothing optional beaches. A guy goes to a beach and he's just not used to having people oogle and make comments at him. He might even like it. He might even do it on purpose because he wants people to stare at him. Meanwhile, a nude woman, a nudist or normalized nudity supporter like me, not an exhibitionist, does not want to be stared at, does not want to be oogled, does not want to have random guys off to her or be like, hey, you're hot, or all this other shit. So it's a very different experience being at a place where you're naked, even if other people aren't naked. Well, actually, especially weird when no one else is naked and you're the only naked person, because then it's like, ooh, look at me. It's not fun. It's not fun. And a lot of nudist men, especially older men who are not raised in progressive environments where we're having conversations about consent and rape culture and everything like that, because they haven't been raised with this sexualization of their bodies from infancy the way that women have, even comments that they think are innocent or whatever, they don't understand how it can be objectifying, how it can be sexualizing and make us feel like, you know, it doesn't matter what's coming out of my mouth right now, 99% of the comments on this are just going to be, ah, nice. It's very insulting. And again, tying that back into nudism, a big reason why I don't like to identify myself as a nudist and why I don't really like going to nudist places is because I do get comments. I do get compliments, and it's just, I don't want to be looked at. I want to be naked. I don't want it to be a big thing. Another big reason that I really don't like to identify myself as a nudist, at least not anymore, is that there's kind of an extremist view that a lot of nudists have where they are straight up hostile to people who do choose to wear clothes. They call them textiles. They say like, oh, they're sheep, they're conforming to society, we're all natural and free, so we're better. That, like, it's so weird to me. The whole reason of why I do what I do is to present the choice of being non-sexually naked. Not that you have to be naked, not that you're shameful if you aren't naked, but simply having the option. It's, for instance, say that you wanted to wear a red shirt or a blue shirt someday, and you were told, no, you can't wear a blue shirt ever. Why? Because it's sexual. How is it sexual? Because we said so. It's silly, right? I'm positing that people have the choice of whether they want to wear a red shirt or a blue shirt, and people wearing blue shirts are not better than people wearing red shirts. People wearing red shirts are not less profane than people wearing blue shirts. It's so silly. It's silly to me to be saying that if you're naked, you're better. You're better than people that wear clothes. How do you arrive at that viewpoint? How does that... Don't do that. That's dumb. Years ago now, I did an interview with Kenny Riot, who is a black man and who has been a part of the Topless Topics community for a long time. And he was one of the first people that I talked to that supported non-sexual nudity, but really did not like the Nudist label. And I have the videos back online. I keep having to re-upload them to different platforms as I get banned. It's a whole thing. You can go to toplesstopics.org/ban to see screenshots. Anyway, I do have the videos back up, and I really do recommend watching them because I don't want to put words in his mouth and, let him represent his own position. But having that interview with him really kind of made me think about the nudist label versus just supporting non-sexual nudity like I do. One thing he said in that interview that has resonated with me to this day is clothing is a spectrum, which I think is a very good way of putting it. There's not a binary switch, naked, not naked. For instance, just recently, the actress Florence Pugh went to a fashion show wearing a dress where it was sort of a see-through material. Like the bottom, you couldn't really see anything, but the top, you could definitely see the outline of her breasts and nipples. You look at all the tabloids, and oh my God, the way they describe her as naked when she's literally covered with fabric, it's just you can see through the top a little bit, all of a sudden she's considered naked. And yet if a man straight up didn't have a shirt, all they would say is he was topless. Like, why are female nipples considered naked but male? We'll get into that in a little bit. Right, back to the spectrum thing. Yes, so I think that's a very good way of putting it because you can wear various different amounts of clothing on different parts of your body. How is it that a woman goes to the beach and she wears a teeny tiny bikini and that's not considered naked, but if she wears a skirt and no shirt, it is? What? So yeah, that was just kind of a big revelation to me when he said that. I was like, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That makes sense. So given how many nudists take this hardline approach of you're either naked or not naked, and if you're not naked, you're a sheep, you're falling for societal norms, blah, 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 is a weird level of gatekeeping to me. It's also just very silly. And what's also silly to me, to awkwardly segue to my next point, is the tendency that so many nudists have, at least online, to center their entire being around being a nudist. Now, I know there are factors going into this. For instance, a lot of people make these anonymous accounts just to get their expression of nudity out separate from what else is going on in their life. However, I don't understand why there's so many accounts where everything they post is about being naked. Everything is like, I love being naked. Who loves being naked? Nakedness fixes everything. For instance, I made a tweet the other day about how I was trying to work up here in the office and I had to stop because it was getting too hot up here. And one of my nudist followers, says man, says, oh, just do it naked. And my reply was, I was actually already naked and it was already a problem. Surprisingly, being naked is not the solution to all of life's problems. So seeing all these nudist accounts where everything they're posting is literally about being naked, it feels very silly to me and I just don't really want to consider myself in the same camp as that. Now, the final big point I want to make about why I'm a non-sexual nudity supporter, but don't consider myself a nudist, again, /naturist. I was raised with the term nudist, so to me, naturist feels very awkward to say, but basically the same thing. Not getting into the whole walking around in nature thing. Again, separate video. The biggest reason that I find myself rejecting the nudist label is that while I am 100% a supporter of having the choice to go non-sexually naked and do whatever you would do clothed, that is not the primary focus of this channel. That is not what the core of my activism has been for the last 10 years. You may notice that the channel is not called Normalizing Nudity Topics, it's Topless Topics. It is about not wearing a shirt. The reason that I focus on that is that the core idea of what I'm trying to get behind with all my work is that it seems kind of insane that this far into the progressive movement, we are still assigning different levels of censorship based on whether you look male or female, which by themselves are just nonsense concepts. I mean, yeah, not getting into that. But again, just the concept of having different levels of censorship based on what gender you look like. Certainly on social media, what gets banned. Again, visit toplesstopics.org/banned if you'd like to see hundreds of examples of me getting banned on every platform you've heard of and some you haven't. Not only are topless female-looking bodies banned on social media, we're banned out in life, we're banned out in the streets, we're banned out in parks. You can have a guy run by in a Speedo and nobody bats an eye, but you have a woman sitting there reading a book without a shirt on and everyone calls the cops. And yes, even in places where technically it's legal for women to be topless, it's still it's still hard because you got people like taking pictures and just like jeering at you, and if you get a puritanical cop who decides to be like, oh, they're disturbing the peace, like it's not safe. It's not safe anywhere in the country for women to be topless or even breastfeeding. New York is maybe the closest, and even then they have to constantly retrain their cops to, you know, not arrest women for exercising their rights to be just as naked or half naked as men. Sorry, I get frustrated because I don't understand why so few people are thinking about how nonsensical that is. How can you call yourself a progressive and not be a topless equality activist? I don't understand how you can be like, yes, I support these other progressive things, but yeah, women's nipples are sexual and men's aren't and shouldn't be banned. That makes sense to me. And what I find frustrating about nudists, especially, it's just going to keep coming back to it, especially with cis male nudists. Not all. I do have some cis men in the community that are very valuable, and I'm not even addressing trans men and everything like that, who are going to have a different perspective on being sexualized than cis men are going to. But a lot of the nudist men who reply to my comments, who tweet at me, etc., really don't seem to respect the fact that my primary focus is on wanting the same rights as them. It's evident in how many times I'll do a topless video and all these nudist men will be like, why don't you do a full naked video? Or why don't you talk about nudism? Or why do you say what you say as if it only affects women? Just the self-centeredness really frustrates me. It really makes me feel like my mission for equality doesn't matter. Sometimes it feels like a lot of these nudist males only follow me because they want to use me as a figurehead, as a springboard for non-sexual nudity acceptance, which, you know, they would benefit from. Like, it's not about me wanting the same rights. It's about using me in my female form to get more attention onto it, to get more people to think, yeah, non-sexual nudity is great. Maybe they feel like if it's only males saying, hey, let's all be non-sexual naked, then it's seen as a perverted thing. But if a woman does it, then it's more equal. I don't know what the thought process is behind that. But yes, honestly, I do find it insulting. I find it objectifying. I find it belittling to take the mission away from my wanting the same rights as men and making it about how can I, a man, also have my willy free in the wind. And again, please don't pull a hashtag not all men. I'm not saying all nudist men are like this. I am specifically addressing the ones who show up a lot in my comments and in my followers who do this, who belittle my mission and make it about them. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Those are the biggest reasons why I don't consider myself a nudist anymore. I prefer to call myself a non-sexual nudity supporter or normalized nudity supporter. I hate that it's so cumbersome. I mean, that is one of the things about nudist, is that it kind of, you know, it's a simple little word. There is, of course, going to be a lot of other people who don't know what a nudist is, just seeing the word nude and being like, oh, they're having sex in public. But again, I don't want to pigeonhole myself as being a nudist. You know, I don't want people to hear nudist and think like, oh, she demonizes people wearing clothes, or, oh, her main focus is on full body nudity. Let's start with topless equality, and then we can move on to maybe teaching people that just because you're doing something naked doesn't mean you're suddenly having sex. I do want to give a shout out to those of you in the Topless Topics community who do get it, who do understand the difference between topless equality and full body normalized nudity, who show words of support without undermining that support by then tacking on a comment about my body. That's another thing I have to do a whole video about. If you're a legitimate supporter of my mission, keep your comments about my breast to yourself, please, thanks. Tone it down, tone it down. Yes, I do want to give a shout out to those of you who get it, and even some of the nudists. There's a lot of nudists on Twitter. That seems to be the main focus for a lot of these nudist groups, and it makes sense because Twitter is basically the only mainstream platform that doesn't ban nudity. They also don't ban hardcore porn, and having to share a platform with hardcore porn is not ideal, but beggars can't be choosers. I do want to give a shout out to the nudists on Twitter who do these follow back Fridays, and when they include me in the list, I would speak up and say, I don't really like you calling me a nudist, I'd rather you call me a topless equality activist. And some of them have. Some of them have said, here's a bunch of nudist people for you to follow, and then here's a topless equality activist for you to follow. And I notice that you're putting the effort in to separate it, and I really do appreciate it. That being said, it is very annoying when I get included in these follow back threads and I get a whole bunch new crop of cis male nudists being like, why don't you do full naked content? But that's kind of why I wanted to do this video, so that hopefully when I get in these situations I can just be like, well, link to video. Hopefully they watch it, but I mean, my videos are always really long, so I understand if they don't want to. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for watching, and if you, again, are new to the channel and you don't know anything about what I do here, I am a topless equality activist. I also talk about mental health care and LGBTQ and racial equality and all sorts of different things. My website's kind of a mess right now because I don't know how to code, so it's really hard to make it look good, but you can go there, you can search by topic and see if you can find a video about what you want. I also have been doing a lot more interviews with interesting people, with professionals, with just people with interesting lived experiences. You can see all the interviews I've done so far at toplesstopics.org/interviews. And I'm always looking for new people to interview. You know, if there's something you really care about or you're a professional, whatever, just go ahead and shoot me an email and we can see if there's a possibility of an interview, figure out scheduling and everything like that. And yeah, finally, if you want to get in contact with me or make sure that you know about new content, I do invite you to follow me on social media. I recommend going to toplesstopics.org/contact to find links to my social media because I get accounts banned and then I have to remake them. And it's very frustrating. It takes a lot of time and it's super frustrating. I already said frustrating. I also really appreciate it if you make accounts and follow me on different platforms because I don't like to have all my eggs in one basket. And one of these days, I'm going to log in. My YouTube's going to be wiped, or my Twitter's going to be wiped, or my Facebook's going to be wiped, or my Instagram's going to be wiped, or one or more of these platforms are going to be completely obliterated. And if you don't follow me on other platforms, that's it. We've lost all contact. So please follow me on the please follow me on the other ones. Also, I did restart my monthly newsletter where I basically kind of summarize new videos, newly re-uploaded videos, community questions, stuff like that. And it's my attempt at reaching people who either don't follow me on social media or who don't engage with my posts enough so that my stuff doesn't show up on their timeline. So if you really want to make sure that you stay up on the up and up with all of Topless Topics goings on, please go to toplesstopics.org/newsletter and you can sign up and you can also see the past newsletters that already went out. So it's only once a month. You can quit anytime. So, you know, no like, oh my God, I'm going to send you 5 emails a day like some companies where it's like, you're only making me want to unsubscribe. I don't know why you're doing that. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm going to shut up now. Thanks for watching. Like if you like, share with your friends, leave a comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Okay, bye! Here are some other videos I've done. Yeah. Click here if you wanna watch them. Except if you're on YouTube, then you should go to the website and go to the search field and type in the name of the topic that you want and see if there's any videos. Or you can follow me on social media. And you can ask me directly and I'll link to any videos I've done that might be on that subject if I have any, and if I don't I'll add it to my list of maybe someday talking about it. Just please don't request any more full naked videos talking about nudism because I'm really f***ing sick of it. Bye!